What's going on, guys? Gray back with another video. In the background, we're going to be watching a gameplay with the MR6 pistol on the map Fringe. It's a really good game. It's very entertaining, fast-paced, and I go in with a pistol. First half's pretty decent. You know, I'm poking and I'm prodding. I'm trying to see what that team's going to do. Second half, I start calling in streaks and I go off. It's a great game. 70 kills. Entertaining, so enjoy it. And that opening clip, man, I loved that opening clip. Wow. In this video, I want to answer a question that one of my subscribers asked. It's actually a question that came up in a couple different variations over the course of a few of my videos, asking me about my work history. I think you guys know that I'm probably a little bit older than a lot of y'all, and I've talked about being self-employed or being in the insurance industry, and I'll use one of the questions in specifics from one of my subscribers. His name is Lemon Hauser. I think I'm saying that right. He asked me, how did you become self-employed? Did I work at McDonald's and save money to start? He's 15 and he doesn't know where to begin. So, not really. Lemon, that's not how it worked. I never set out to be self-employed. It just kind of happened. You know, I remember my first legitimate job. I worked at a pizza place called Mr. Jim's, and flipping pizzas, because I loved pizza, and Mr. Jim's was my favorite place, so I wanted to work there. Didn't last very long. It was my first job. It was a learning curve. During the summers while I was in junior high and high school, I would work at my dad's business. I did a lot of clerical work. It was an office type space, and then when I turned 16, he put me on the phones. I started calling businesses. That's where I kind of cut my teeth on sales. And once I started college, and that's a whole nother story, by the way. I actually tested out of high school whenever I was 15, started going to college then. But when I went to university around 17, 18 years old, I started working at my dad's business almost full time. When I wasn't in college, I was working for him. And that's where I really started to learn sales. And I worked at my dad's company probably for 2 years or so until I finished my degree. And this is an interesting one. Towards the end of my degree, there was an ad that was in the newspaper. It said, make $100,000 a year or more, be your own boss. It's up to you. So I'm sitting here thinking, I've always been really good at school. I've had success in sales with my dad, and I could tell that this was a sales job. I was like, I'm going to answer this ad. So I put together a resume and I send it in, and I didn't know what to expect, if anybody was even going to call me. But I get a call the very next week, and it's from a guy named Marty, and he's talking to me. He asked me a few questions, and I answer him, and he says, why don't you come in for an interview next week? And I said, okay. And I was real excited because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make $100,000 a year. So I get all dressed up, for an interview. And I got my resume real professional looking. And I think at this time I'm 18 years old. And I go in for this interview. And I get there and I go up to the receptionist desk and I'm like, hi, my name is, and I'm here to meet with Marty about the job. And she's like, okay. And she takes note of it. And she asked me to go sit down in this room. I'll go into this room and there's like 30 or 40 or 50 people in this room, and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, are they hiring a bunch of positions or am I competing against all these people? And I'm young, all right? All these people are older. And then a guy comes in and he doesn't really say much to us individually. He walks up to this whiteboard and he starts talking about insurance. What I didn't realize was that I was in a group interview. And he is explaining to all of us at the same time what it is to be in the insurance industry, what are the pros of it, how does it work, and all that kind of stuff. And he goes on and on for about 30 to 45 minutes talking about all the great things about insurance, how much money you can earn, trips, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there, I'm really confused. I'm watching, I'm listening, but in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there like, well, are you going to interview me? So then he finishes up and he says, if any of you guys are interested in pursuing this, just stay in your seats and we'll get to you one by one. And I'm just kind of staring at him. And then people start to get up and leave. See, I didn't realize that this was a common thing that happened in the business industry, these group interviews on straight commission positions. So I sit there because I'm interested. And so they pulled me aside and they're like, all right, are you interested in doing this? And I'm like, yeah, I am very interested in doing this. And they said, well, you are young, and insurance is somewhat difficult to do when you're young because you don't have a track record and people don't necessarily want to buy insurance from somebody who doesn't have life experience. I'm like, that's fine. I can get around that. So they say, if you want to pursue this, you've got to get licensed. And they hand me a book, and the book's about 250, 300 pages long. They say, study this book, call this number, go in and take your test. I'm like, okay. This was no big deal because I'm still finishing up college here, so taking a test is nothing for me. And so I study the book, takes me 2 to 3 days. I go in, I pass the test, and now I'm licensed. Of course, you got to wait for your license to come in. During that time, you're in this training process where they go over how to call and how to run appointments and that kind of thing. They team me up with another agent, and that's where everything kind of took off for me. This agent took me under his wing and kind of taught me, this is what we do, this is what you say on the phone, this is how you set an appointment, and then he took me out on appointments, and this is how you close an appointment, and so on and so forth. So it wasn't that I necessarily set out to be self-employed, it just kind of happened that way. You know, we all, when we're younger, we think that, oh, when I get older, I'm going to be this. See, I had set out to be a doctor at first. That's what I really wanted to be. And then as I got older, I started to realize that I didn't know if I really wanted to be a doctor and go through medical school. But I did like helping people, so I thought, you know what, I'll be a counselor. So the bachelor's that I pursued was a bachelor's in psychology, with the whole point of getting that degree was to go and get my master's in counseling and then a doctorate in counseling as well. So I finished up my bachelor's, and at this point I had been in the insurance industry for about 9 months. And in that 9 months I made $75,000, which is a lot of money for somebody who's 18, 19 years old. In my opinion, that's a lot of money. So I get accepted to the master's program at a university out here in Dallas to do my counseling degree. And I go in, and I had just finished my bachelor's, mind you, okay? And school was starting to get on my nerves, all right? I could only take so much. And I'm a 4.0 student, by the way. And so I go to my first master's class, and it's an introductory to counseling. And I get in the class, and it's packed. There's probably 60, 70 people in there. And I'm sitting on the front row. It's a 3-hour class, and the professor stands up and he starts to explain the life of a counselor. You know, what they do day in and day out, how they build their business, their practice, and how much they can earn. And we were about 45 minutes into the class when he starts talking about how much an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, can make. And it boiled down to about $50,000 to $60,000 a year, and I freeze. At this point in my life, I'm working about 25 hours a week doing insurance, and I'm making $75,000 a year, or at least in the first 9 months I made $75,000. And here's this professor telling me that I'm about to go through 2 years of a master's program, spend $35,000 on this degree to make less than what I'm currently making, working more hours than what I'm currently doing. And I pause for about 15 minutes. I put my stuff away in my backpack, I get up and I walk out. And I never went back. It was at that point that I realized that this thing that I learned about in macroeconomics came to pass. It's called opportunity cost. It's a very important term that you guys need to research and define for your life. Opportunity cost is your path that you're taking worth it compared to the path that you're already on? I never set out to be an insurance agent. Obviously, it's the path that God chose for me. But I didn't necessarily want to be an insurance agent. I mean, when you're growing up with your buddies and they're like, I want to be a baseball player, I want to be an astronaut. Little Billy in the corner doesn't say, I want to sell insurance. You know, it's not really where I thought I was going to go. Now, I still help people with insurance. I'm still somewhat in the medical field. I have a very wide knowledge base for this, but it wasn't what I wanted to do necessarily when I was younger. And being self-employed wasn't actually on my list. It just happened. And I've been in the insurance industry ever since. I do health insurance, and I can talk about health insurance if you guys want to, but it's kind of boring. But yeah, so to answer your question, Lemon, it's not how did I become self-employed, it's just that's where my path took me in my business. And it really takes all my strengths, my ability to talk really comes into play there, all right? I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. As always, if you have a question or a comment, put it down below. And if you want more, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.